Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here at StatSalt.com. It's currently Tuesday, May 21st. However, before we get into the leans of the day, we will first recap of what happened yesterday. As some of you might have known, I was filling in for Scott Steen on the Winners and Whiners page for the last couple of days. And even though overall it did not go as well as we hoped, we did end up ending it on a high note on the deep three, as we did go 2-1 yesterday, including a huge plus 170 underdog with the Twins minus 1.5 runs. So yesterday we went 2-1 for plus 1.57 units. Definitely a good way to go out on top, so to speak, with the Winners and Whiners page. However, Scott Steen is now back, so now I will be going back to my usual role of StatSalt videos, whether it's tennis or the Scott selections in the, just for the leans of the games of the afternoon. With regard to tennis, I actually wanted to know some of your feedback because regardless of what you guys might think, I am personally keeping a record on myself, as well as the fact that I've been betting every game that I've recommended. So based on that, the one question that I have for all of you is, I don't know how you want me to score the tennis match from yesterday between Diaz and Tomic. The reason why I ask is because we recommended Diaz on the money line. However, he was up one set and then up 4-1 in the second, and then Tomic retired. Now, at first, some of you might think, well, you should obviously, count that or do not count it towards your record because of the fact that most books do not count that, and most books view retirements as a cancellation. However, some sports books do count it, and I know that 5 Dimes is one of those where if one full set is completed, then your wager counts. So overall, I don't know how you want me to score it. As of right now, I'm viewing that as a no action, so I'm not counting it towards my personal record. But just for future reference, if a player retires in the middle of a match after a first set, do you want me to count that towards the record, or do you not want me to count it towards my record? As of right now, I'm not counting it, but if you have some feedback below, just something to keep in mind, because the one thing that I'm trying to guarantee with all my stuff, besides just providing you with knowledge, is complete transparency. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm potentially inflating my numbers when I don't exactly need to. So with that being said, those are my thoughts. I will not be counting the Diaz and Tomic match on my personal record because most books canceled the wager, even though some books do. If you think I should count it anyway, then let me know. But as of right now, that is not what I'm currently doing. Having said that, it's time to dive into the main events today in the sports world. We'll start out with the basketball game on tonight between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors. Milwaukee opened up a -2 up to -3, and the total has been bet down from 220 to 217.5. I know that for the Winners and Whiners. Oh, yeah, Terry, that's also true. Yeah, Sinner with some of the leans, Sinner's match did get canceled. However, that is different because of the fact because Kukushkin withdrew before the match started, whereas I'm talking about a matchup where 2 players actually played, and then after one set was completed, the guy withdrew. So there is a difference because when one guy cancels, that's before the match even started. So the match you bet on is between 2 different players. However, Diaz and Tomic actually did play in the match. So that's the difference there. In one of them, the match didn't actually start before there was a withdrawal, whereas the other one, the match was already underway and the person canceled halfway through. So that's the difference there, Terry. But yeah, Sinner one should be canceled because you bet on him versus Kukushkin, and Kukushkin didn't even show up, and he was replaced by another player who destroyed Sinner. But that wager would be canceled because you didn't know he'd be playing that other guy. Whereas on the other hand, you knew Diaz would be playing Tomic, which is exactly what happened. And then Tomic ended up leaving after a set and a half, give or take. That's the difference there. But overall, you did get a win. Nice. I'm curious which book you're using there as an example of some tennis books you might want to look into, because of the fact that if a player withdraws, you hopefully would look to cash that bet anyway. But anyway, don't want too long in the intro here. We'll go back to the Milwaukee Bucks and Toronto Raptors. Some of you might have known in the Winners and Whiners page, we did have the Bucks money line in Game 3. And for me, I still have no idea how they lost Game 3. With Kawhi getting injured, Kyle Lowry fouling out in regulation, Norman Powell fouling out in regulation. The whole Toronto team was dealing with foul trouble and was also dealing with injuries. And yet Milwaukee was unable to close it out in single overtime or double overtime. For me, and if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I was blaming Eric Bledsoe pretty much for the entirety of the game, as he was practically useless. Middleton was also terrible, but Bledsoe's basketball IQ might be the lowest in all of basketball, might be the lowest in the NBA. Just the way that he shoots threes when he can't shoot, the way that he drives to the lane when three people are chasing him instead of kicking it back out for a better look. I just don't think he's the brightest light bulb in the bunch, and I think that he should be getting less minutes moving forward based on how well George Hill and Malcolm Brogdon played in Game 3. But there's a reason why Milwaukee's favored by 3 here. Toronto's still dealing with a lot of injuries. I know Kawhi did play really well in Game 3 for someone who is dealing with an injury, but he was not the same defensively. Giannis was also terrible. He had 12 points, 23 rebounds, but still 12 points. And for me, Milwaukee's favored by 3 here. I think Milwaukee's going to kill him. I think that Toronto did a great job of winning a game that they probably shouldn't have won. But now you have to look at Milwaukee and assume that if Giannis scores roughly 20 points, this game's a wrap. And I think that if Bledsoe just simply doesn't do as many stupid things he did in game 3, Milwaukee should win this game pretty easily. So I'll personally lean to the Bucks there at -3, and I will also lean to the under as Toronto's offense definitely had issues dealing with Milwaukee's defense, and Milwaukee's offense had issues dealing with Toronto's defense. Leonard's injury does hurt in terms of the numbers because of the fact that Leonard's one of the best defenders in the league. But Toronto looks like they've developed a game plan to stop Giannis, and Milwaukee's supporting cast did struggle a tad initially when it came to filling in for him. So for me, I will lean to the under there, and I would lean to the Bucks at -3, but the main lean on that game will be on the Bucks -3. Moving on, we'll go into the hockey game between the St. Louis Blues and the San Jose Sharks. First of all, before we get into it, props to the St. Louis Blues for coming back from a 2-1 deficit and a questionable hand pass to taking a commanding 3-2 series lead after destroying the Sharks 5-0 in Game 4 of that series in San Jose. So Game 5, I should say, in San Jose. Props to them. That was definitely a fantastic performance by the Blues. In this game, the total's at 5.5, and St. Louis has been bet up for -165 on the money line to roughly -170. This might sound like a questionable pick here, but I will actually be leaning towards the Sharks here, and I will also be leaning to the over. This is the type of game that people will all assume St. Louis is going to win because of the fact that San Jose got embarrassed on national television on Sunday as they ended up losing 5-0. But for me, I personally think there's a lot of value on San Jose here. San Jose knows that they got embarrassed. They also know that their playoff lives are at stake. And St. Louis had a similar spot in the last series against Dallas, and they ended up losing at home to the Stars. I know they ended up winning the series in 7 as they were able to eventually close out the series. But everyone knows that hockey, the home ice advantage, does not mean as much in hockey as it does in other sports. So for me, something to keep in mind there. I just think that the Blues shouldn't be a -180 favorite here. I know that they did look great in the last game, but everything went wrong for San Jose. And I think San Jose will come back with its leaders, with Couture and Thornton, as well as Burns. I expect them to play better. And I think that this game will be close. Do I think San Jose will be able to personally win this game? That's debatable. But at the same point, I definitely think this game will be a lot closer than a -180 favorite indicates. So I think there is a lot of value on San Jose there. And I will also lean to the over 5.5, as Martin Jones has not looked great this series. Bennington has looked pretty good as he had a shutout in the last game. But the Sharks themselves didn't get many shots on net, as St. Louis's forecheck was godly in the last game, and San Jose had no answers. So for me, I will lean to the over 5.5 there. And I will also lean to the Sharks on the money line at roughly +155. And that line is actually available on bookmakers, so I will be leaning to that as well. Yeah, Brad, my book didn't count it either, so I will personally not be using it, but some people's books like Terry's did. So that's why I was asking. Personally, I'm not going to include it on the record, which is a shame because Diaz was clearly the right side, and if Tomic actually managed to stay in the match for about 5 more minutes, we would have been able to cash a nice winner. But as of right now, I marked it as a push on my personal record, and I will be keeping it as such. But if you think I should count it, then just comment below. But as of right now, I will be keeping it as a push. Now, moving on to the baseball games today. There's no early morning games or early afternoon games, which is why the video is coming out now, because I didn't have to worry about potentially missing one of the earlier games. And the first game, you have the A's as they take on the Indians, and Indians are roughly -122. Lean to the Indians. They've looked really solid lately. They were able to win game 1 against the A's yesterday. Bassett's been solid this season, but Bauer's also been really good. I would lean to the Indians at minus 122, and I'd also lean to the under 8.5 as both teams have solid starters today. I think that runs will be coming at a premium. So those are my leans on that one. Moving on, Yankees did cash a very nice minus 1.5 for us yesterday on the deep three. Did get a little bit lucky with those 4 runs in the ninth inning and Gary Sanchez with that absolute bomb in the ninth for that 3-run homer, which definitely helped. But in terms of this game, you have Hess versus Herman. I would lean to Yankees minus 2.5 here. I think the Yankees are going to kill them. The Orioles did everything wrong late in that game, and they were up 6-1 because J.A. Happ is pretty much inept at what he does at this point. But the Yankees managed to come back because the Orioles, first of all, the outfielder on a single by Maben launches to third base, lets Cameron Maben go to second. Stupid. Then after that, you have Hicks' sac fly in which Gardner scores, where Dwight Smith Jr. might have the biggest noodle arm in the entire league. Tries to launch it home, and he ends up letting Maben get to third base. Then after that, you have Luke Voit hit a pop-up to the catcher in foul territory, who completely misses the ball. They walk Voit next with 2 outs. Next batter, Sanchez threw a homer. The Orioles are just simply the worst team in baseball, and they play the game pretty much in any type of tutorial video on like what not to do in baseball. That's what the Orioles do every day. And the Yankees have scored at least 10 runs in back-to-back games. I know that people have been worried in the long run about how the Yankees would perform without the key people in Stan and Judge. And Stan actually has a rehab assignment in the minor leagues today, so he will be back relatively shortly. But the Yankees are currently rolling, and Herman's been fantastic. He's 7-1 this season, and Hess has been awful, 2-5 with roughly a 5.5 ERA. So Herman is 8-1 actually. But for me, I will go with the Yankees minus 2.5. Yankees should kill them in this game. The total's at 9.5, so I know that the weather itself should be beneficial towards the over with some wind blowing out. Hess is 1-5 with a 5.58 ERA. Thanks, Makira. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you've been able to get some solid content for me, and that hopefully we've been able to make some money together over the last couple of months. But for me, I'm leaning to the Yankees. I think the Yankees will kill them. I think the Yankees will score at least 6 runs, and I think the Orioles will score roughly 2. So I will lean to the Yankees minus 2.5 in that game, whatever price that may be. Moving on, if you're a little bit scared about that, I'd lean to the Yankees minus 1.5, but I think there is value on the 2.5 there. Moving on, you have the Phillies and the Cubs. I will be leaning to the Phillies there at roughly plus 122 on that one. You have F1 versus Quintana. Quintana's been okay, but the Cubs just lost a heartbreaker yesterday due to blowing a save in the ninth inning. And the Phillies have actually been rolling over the last couple of games as they destroyed Colorado over the weekend. And Harper had a nice defensive play as he threw a guy out at the plate yesterday. He also had a couple home runs over the weekend against Colorado. So he's starting to play better. And I simply think that the Phillies have a lot of weapons, and I think that the Cubs should not be a minus 135 favorite based on how they've been playing recently. So I will be leaning to the Phillies on the money line there. Moving on, I will lean to the Rockies at minus 125 with Marquez versus Archer. Overall, I just think Archer's extremely overrated. He has great stuff, but his command and his pitch selection are very questionable. And Marquez just got a huge extension from the Rockies, rightfully served. I think he's a very solid pitcher, and I do think that he should be favored in this matchup, so I will be leaning to Marquez there. Moving on, you have the Red Sox and Toronto. I lean to the Red Sox minus 1.5 with Stroman versus Rodriguez. Even though Rodriguez has been okay this season, the Red Sox just destroyed Toronto yesterday. Toronto has had issues scoring in their last couple of home games. I believe they've scored 2 runs in 5 of their last 6 home games. The Red Sox just scored 12 runs. Their lineup's starting to heat up. And excuse me, I definitely think that the Red Sox should be able to get to Stroman early and often. And I think that the Red Sox will be able to cover this run line pretty easily. So I will link to the Red Sox minus 1.5 there. Moving on, you have the Dodgers versus the Rays. Dodgers are currently a minus 135 favorite, give or take, and the total is at 8. With Wood on the mound, I lean to the Dodgers. Kershaw's been great this season. He has not been his Cy Young MVP level self from a couple of years back, but considering all the injuries he had to deal with during the offseason, he has looked great. And the Dodgers definitely have a very solid lineup that is capable of putting up a lot of runs against Wood, and I think that the Dodgers will be able to win this game. So I like the minus 135 give or take line. Their best line right now is minus 136 at BetOnline. I'd recommend taking that now. Moving on, you have the Nationals versus the Mets. With Fedde versus Wheeler, I lean to the over 8 here. Mets are currently a minus 145 favorite, but both teams I don't really trust with their pitching staff and their bullpens. Wheeler has the ability to get roughed up, especially against the solid Nationals lineup, where Fedde is not that great either, and the Mets lineup has looked pretty good in recent games. So I will be leaning to the over 8 there. I think that game should generate a decent amount of runs. I see a 5-4 final, something along those lines. So I will lean to the over in that one. Moving on, you have the Marlins versus the Tigers with Caleb Smith versus Turnbull. I lean to the Marlins here. I think the Tigers are the better team, but at the same point, Turnbull got absolutely destroyed against the A's in his last start, and I believe the A's scored roughly 16 or 17 runs in that game. Turnbull is just not a great pitcher for me. Caleb Smith has actually been really good for the Marlins this season, and I definitely think that there is value on the Marlins in that one. And the Marlins are currently roughly a plus 100 underdog. I would lean there. I'd lean to the Marlins first half money line. Smith has been a very underrated pitcher this season. Turnbull's been awful. So I will be leaning to the Marlins there on value. Corey, I will potentially make a tennis video after this one. I was going to make one last night, but I didn't really see any matches that I actually enjoyed. And the one match I actually liked, there was no value on, and that match started roughly 4 in the morning. So tennis, I will make a video sometime tonight once I look at the matchups. So stay posted for that, Corey, but it will not be after this video. Plus, we're already at roughly 16 minutes. I don't want to make this that long. So I'll try to make the rest of the leans relatively quickly and get out by roughly 18 minutes. Moving on, you have the Reds versus the Brewers. I lean to the Brewers here. Gio's been very good with the Brewers since coming over. So I lean to the Brewers money line there, roughly minus 140. Moving on, I like the over 11.5 in the Rangers and Mariners game. They totaled 19 runs yesterday. Malone's not great. Lynn's not great. Lean to the over there. Moving on, you have the Astros and the White Sox. Lean to the White Sox team total under there with Verlander on the mound. I think the Astros will kill him, and I think that the White Sox lineup will continue to struggle against Verlander. Moving on, I lean to the over 9 in the Cardinals and Royals game with Homer Bailey Day on the mound. I simply like the over there. Moving on, I like the Braves money line roughly minus 110 with Toronto against Anderson. Braves are the better team, but I think it's close. Giants are terrible. I lean to the Braves on that one. Moving on, I will lean to the over in the Twins-Angels game with Pineda and Kale. Both pitchers have the ability to get lit up, I should say, and I think that both lineups will do well. Following a 3-1 offensive outburst, that's being sarcastic. Yesterday, I would have leaned to the over there. I think both offenses will bounce back quite nicely. And last game, you have the Padres versus the Diamondbacks. I lean to Greinke here. He's been very solid this season as Diamondbacks is a brief underdog. I think there is a lot of value there. Overall, that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections here on Tuesday, May 21st. The main lean will be on the Bucks -3. And good luck to all of you and your respective bets on this Tuesday. Bye, everyone.